Is David Kibbe's Power of Style worth your time? I'm probably the only person in the whole world who read his original book from the 80s, Metamorphosis, and his new book, Power of Style, back to back. I just reviewed Metamorphosis last week, and I promised a more positive review this time. I don't know if I can offer that. That being said, there are big improvements. First and most impactfully, he's gotten rid of the idea of fitting into an archetype. He says there are no archetypes, you are you. That means he also got rid of personality attributes such as sharp features equaling CEO qualities and essences. So you're no longer trying to determine what you give in your aura because it's weird to box that in. It's always going to change, and that comes naturally. So I love to hear that. Yin and Yang is no longer referred to as an ancient Oriental philosophy. Instead, he recognizes that it's Chinese and that he adapted it for his uses. There is a lot less shame-inducing language because he got rid of all of the personality attributes, and he doesn't say anything like, straight lines make you look dumpy, which he did last time. He acknowledges that there is a lot of good style today and that old Hollywood lacked a lot of diversity, but he's still using old Hollywood as the kind of key point for this system. The image identity system got a huge update, but it's actually much simpler than it was originally. He uses the strategy of melody, which he calls harmony, but it's the idea that you reflect your features onto the clothes that you wear. You use your own characteristics as inspiration. So you figure out your features through a simple silhouette sketch, and then you translate that into yin and yang. His formula for dressing every day is color, silhouette, and situation. The bulk of this book is a mixture of mindset and style challenges, which he calls games. I played every single game. I'll share just a few with them here because no spoilers. These are my collages for inspiration and to create visuals that match the seasons and yin and yang. And if you're gonna do this, I highly recommend going into Pinterest and saving everything to a board, then going into shuffles and connecting your Pinterest so that you can make collages exactly as you want them. I did game 14 today, which is his victorious shopping strategy. Definitely paraphrasing here. Before you go shopping, get yourself a little treat. I am broke, so I stopped by the PetSmart next to Target to say hi to the fishies and the turtle and get some inspiration. Honestly, it was kind of nice. The process for shopping goes vaguely like this. Go into the store, find your size, eliminate everything outside of your color season, and take with you what's left in your silhouette. And lastly, the goal is to create a head-to-toe look in store. If you don't do that, you'll come home with mix match pieces and never have nice cohesive outfits. So immediately I ran into a problem because Target does not separate its items by size. And honestly, I can't think of a store that really does except for thrift stores, which don't have dressing rooms in them where I am. So I had to go through the whole store, find my color season, and pay attention to silhouette at the same time because there's no way I was gonna walk through everywhere. And then the technique for the dressing room is very interesting. The whole idea is to create a beautiful environment so that you're kinder to yourself and you can be more inspired by your clothes. So I did this according to his recommendations, listening to music. I don't know how he expects us to listen to music. There's already music playing in the dressing room, and Target does a pretty good job. But wired headphones would absolutely not work in a dressing room. Over-the-ear headphones, I had to take off every time I took off a top. So you'd need to have earbuds or something. Next, to have a little item that is beautiful and inspiring for you, I chose this sparkly blue moon. And to have a note from game 1 where you listed 3 of your favorite physical features and tape that to the mirror. So I did. I did need to bring a roll of tape into Target to do this, but it was kind of cute. So I feel like I got pretty lucky in store. There was a lot of my color season. I thought everything was really pretty, but I also feel like I missed out on some pieces that I would have tried on if I wasn't strictly looking for my color season and my silhouette. Honestly, my favorite thing that I tried on was this blue bow shirt, which technically doesn't match my silhouette, so. And lastly, he highly encourages you to invest in yourself, meaning whatever your shopping budget is, increase it 10%. I think that's crazy in this economy. So, if you can't tell, I don't have an overwhelmingly positive takeaway from this. Let's get into the critiques, of which there are many. All of these critiques are completely my own. They're things I wrote down as I was reading the book, but I've since been on the Power of Style Reddit and the Strictly Kibbe Power of Style group, and I'm noticing a lot of the same critiques. First of all, it's not always clear what to do with the games once you're done. There's kind of an obvious reason behind every game, but it would have been nice for him to talk through what you could have or should have learned from it and how to apply it to your style. For example, there's one that helps you identify your negative and positive biases to certain styles or certain body parts. And someone in the Facebook group expanded on it and wrote in her journal what the root causes of those biases were. That would be an excellent addition in the book. His color theory continues to confuse me. First of all, he claims that colors are connected always. So if I have warm hair, I must have warm skin and warm eyes because that's just how genetics work. And let me tell you, there are lots of times where someone is completely warm with very cool eyes, or vice versa. He claims that all makeup choices should be completely coherent, like same intensity, same undertone. I think that's boring. And he doubles down on the fact that he doesn't believe in sub-seasons or mixed palettes, but he does give explicit seasons, such as soft summer, which is a sub-season. I know it's different in his mind, but it's really convoluted in the text. They boast there are like 85 visuals in the book, but it feels like a lot less. I would have benefited a lot more from more obvious photos showing harmonious and disharmonious options. For example, we're missing visuals on a lot of the colors. There are already people debating in the Facebook group about what mocha means or where hazel eyes end up because hazel can look like so many different things. It's not great to teach about color through words. There's a game that teaches you to raise your expectations of style by watching a bunch of old Hollywood movies. There was already a poster in the Facebook group who didn't feel inspired by any of these movies because they're looking for more androgynous look, and Katharine Hepburn is not androgynous enough. I think Kibbe really needs to understand that just because he loves old Hollywood doesn't mean the rest of us do. The actual method of discovering your silhouette is not really that beginner friendly. The idea is to visualize draping your body in a weighted silk chiffon. Most of us don't know what that looks like. I had a really hard time finding a reference photo that didn't have any gathering or pleats or waist cinching. Then, the photo drawings that he provides are not completely consistent in where the shoulders are, and I can't understand how his curve examples hug at the waist if it's a silk chiffon. I really like the new formula of dominant plus additional characteristics determining your yin and yang, but the blue dots that represent those in the graphics are super confusing, especially because the bodies don't have enough variation in them. There's a much larger range than is being represented here. Ugh. I'm sorry I'm getting so much more negative than I wanted to. I had really high hopes for this book. I would have appreciated more than one sentence dedicated to each of the image identities. It was honestly the smallest part of the book, and the original, it was the largest. I listened to the audiobook, and the section breaking down each of the archetypes was 7 minutes long. I think this is what most people were looking forward to. He's also done away with all the detail recommendations. No necklines, no sleeves, no nothing. You're just supposed to understand how to replicate your yin and yang through your clothing. There's a ton of mindset work, honestly very basic mindset work. I appreciate it, and I know it's important, but we deserve to have a lot more practical advice. I think if his books were exceptionally written theory, women would not have to spend decades questioning their own type and choices and need to be reaching out to him for reassurance. Obviously, that's hard. I'm working on my own system right now still, and it's not easy, but that is my expectation. He demands that you embrace subjectivity and that objectivity is a hoax. He also says it's narcissistic not to include other people's experience of you into your style. I think there are so many people who would be so much happier not considering what anyone else thinks of their appearance. I felt a little mean writing this critique until I saw what people were saying on Reddit, and they were much meaner. It's cute and it's fun to learn about David Kibbe's personal past, his piano prodigy childhood, his successful musical theater career, his personal joy finding the models for this book, but I can't wrap my head around why anyone should care if they're totally new to this. If you don't have this long history with Kibbe, I just want to know the power of my style. But I guess it's called David Kibbe's Power of Style, so there's a lot about David Kibbe in it. It's especially hard for me to understand why we should care because there is no proof of this incredible past he's always talking about. No clips of him on Oprah, no evidence of his 2 one-man shows in New York. Most importantly, there is no evidence of his styling career. Aside from the handful of photos in both of his books, you can't see anyone he's dressing or how he's dressing them. And I don't even like the examples in the books. It really feels like they're not looking to reach a new audience and instead just upgrade the theory for the audience that came from the 80s. There's a chapter called something like Myths, Mistakes, and Misconceptions, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. There's a quote about accepting responsibility and moving on and doing better, but he never acknowledges the fact that his system was faulty. That led women to be confused for years. And he just blamed the internet for misunderstanding his words. There's a section used to promote the book that goes like this: your image identity, your season, your line sketch, your yin-yang balance, complementary silhouette, head to toes, victorious shopping, all are part of what playing the games lead you to. What I want to clarify and emphasize here is that they are not a revised version of what were called exercises in Strictly Kibbe, the Facebook group. What became known as the exercises were not created as such. They are actually highlights of random conversational advice I offered up starting in the early days of Strictly Kibbe, when misinformation was rampant. An enterprising member later lifted memorable bits and created the format that exists. End quote. A user on Reddit says, "Sorry, but that's BS. That is straight up BS. And also seems to throw some random Strictly Kibbe member under the bus. David was explicit in black and white text on Strictly Kibbe that if group members followed his exercises, they'd reach the promised land of style freedom or whatever. He explicitly promised that if women read every single word carefully and followed what he wrote, those lessons would be sufficient to help her find her ID. Of course, then he never fulfilled that promise. That's not the same as him not having made the promise. He did, and there are women who participated for years on that premise. And those exercises sure weren't bits of anything. To be blamed on some random member as if his real genius wasn't captured in them and they just lifted small parts of some larger conversation he had shared with them, those exercises were long, start to finish rambles that no member was allowed to lift just a bit from. It was categorically and explicitly against the rules to modify any text Kibbe wrote, even to make it easier to follow for people with learning disabilities. He ranted about it in writing, how every single word was chosen carefully by him, so everyone should read and reread these exercises exactly as he wrote them, and that each word was necessary and all the words together would be sufficient. He never ever framed it as just random snippets of advice to counter misinformation. He consistently framed it as a step-by-step process to reach his so-called promised land. Anyhow, I think this deserves to be pointed out. Because that Strictly Kibbe post was unworthy of an adult to write, David Kibbe is an adult and shouldn't get away with lying about his well-documented history, always trying to manipulate the way others see reality so that they keep him up on a pedestal. But it does seem like in his hypermania, he'll just keep following this pattern of self-excusing self-aggrandizement. But I don't have to play along, and I think it's actually socially healthy to refuse to be gaslit. So that's my reaction to that. 22 upvotes. Woo! And my last critique. Why does it only apply to women? I understand we're the only market you can profit off of, but if honoring your yin and yang balance is essential to the balance of the universe and beauty itself, if it's that important, men deserved equal attention in the book. But it's a book strictly for women. So, making this video was difficult because I was hoping to fully love what Kibbe put out, because I like the core of his original system. The idea of melody and embracing your natural features is beautiful. However, I dislike absolutely everything else. And I don't think we need to keep Kibbe around in order to use melody to our advantage. This might be my last time talking about Kibbe, and it's definitely my last time giving Kibbe advice. Before we get into who I think is the ideal person for this system, let me just take a step back. I know that was some pretty heavy criticism. The book was cute and fun. I think a lot of people could benefit from this book. There's a lot of good reminders about loving yourself. He repeatedly reminds you that you're made of stardust and that you're a star. And according to his books, he's had a major instrumental role in creating the style and beauty landscape today. I couldn't find a lot of proof of that outside of his own sources, but I wasn't alive, so maybe. Obviously, having learned more about David Kibbe and his systems, I'm not his ideal audience. but someone is. I think the ideal person for this system is a woman who is Gen X and looking to accentuate her natural beauty and in need of help learning to love herself. That's a lot of people, and I think it will help those people well. Reading Metamorphosis, there were definitely bigger red flags, but I chalked it up to it being the 80s. So I'm sorry I didn't expect to have to be harsher in this one. Luckily, my next video is going to be really fun. I'm upgrading my whole closet with almost no budget. I'm doing this by cutting and sewing up and dyeing and painting my clothes. And I'm hoping to have it out before the end of the month, but we'll see what happens. So be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and please let me know what you think of these videos. And I especially want to know what you think of Kibbe and his new book. Are you going to read it? Did you read it? Did you like it? I bet if you do get the book and you approach it just for having fun, you will have fun. I listened to it on audiobook, which was really nice, a little bit more confusing, but you do get a download of the PDF for the visuals. If you have Spotify Premium, it's actually free. If you have an Audible membership, it's 99 cents. And it's actually narrated by David Kibbe and his wife Susan Slavin, so that's fun. But the hard copy is beautiful and might be easier to follow. Speaking of following, I'm on so many different platforms making style philosophy content. It's all a little different. There are many facets to style and beauty and fashion, as we know. So I'm tackling different ones on each platform. Everything is in my link tree in the description. I also do style consulting, so if you want to know your color season or get a full reflection report where I break down your options for melody, harmony, and dissonance, both in color and line, thank you so much for watching. I'm having a lot of fun with YouTube, so I'm grateful that you stuck around, and I will see you soon.